against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever, Warren.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, card breaking news, culture, magnetic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Ladies and gentlemen, you tune into Simply Bitcoin, the most watched daily Bitcoin live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. We have a lot to unpack today, starting in hot with breaking news. Wells Fargo, America's second largest bank, announced that they have exposure to BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. And on a state level, specifically the state of Wisconsin, their pension fund just announced that they also bought about $100 million worth of the spot Bitcoin ETF. Bitcoin's game theory is playing out in real time. Its incentives are irresistible. And now here's what's going to happen. Specifically with the state of Wisconsin, with Wells Fargo, all of a sudden, their incentives are going to align with the rest of us Bitcoiners. And I know what a lot of you guys are saying. A lot of you guys are saying, well, Nico, it's not real Bitcoin. You know, they're buying captured Bitcoin. They're buying ETF Bitcoin. It's still Bitcoin exposure nonetheless. So all of a sudden, and Bitcoin's an aligned incentive structure system, them pursuing their own need for profit, need for greed, like just their own greed, is going to align their incentive structure. All of a sudden, they're going to want number to go up. All of a sudden, they're not going to like any anti-Bitcoin regulation that potentially could hurt number go up, right? So the floodgates are really, really about to open. And here's the thing. Wisconsin's pension fund now has a competitive advantage to all the other pension funds and all other 49 US states because they have exposure to number go up technology, right? So this is bonkers. This is absolutely crazy. Like we've been saying this was going to happen, but now it's happening. I feel very, very optimistic about this upcoming bull run and what it means for specifically for the price of Bitcoin specifically, because the revolution is self-custody. That's a whole other subject altogether, but extremely bullish news. Also, another news as well, we have just people are feeling the pain. Like if you were to believe the economic data that's coming out, you'd say, you know, the US is actually in a really good spot. You know, like the GDP is growing, unemployment is down, but I think people they're still hurting. You can't afford rent. You can't afford a house. They're starting to see the creeps of broken money all over the place. They're starting to see the consequences of inflation. And remember, it's not only the debasement of currency, but it's also the degradation of products as well, as companies try to cut costs in order to keep prices the same. You know, and that's called shrinkflation. People are starting to see that. Also, a news from The Guardian coming out of Australia, and regarding a man that was forced to hand over the border guards the passcode to his phone. And I think, you know, because Bitcoin gives you the ability to not only vote with your wallet, but also your feet, I suspect really what you're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is I think you're going to see more of that, because the capital controls that they once had aren't as effective, right? Like you can't just you literally just can't, you know, like how the law currently stands is every $10,000 that you cross a border with, like $10,000 in cash or the equivalent in gold or diamonds or whatever, you have to report it, right? But you know, the way that Bitcoin functions, right? You can write down a 12-word seed phrase, you can memorize it, and then all of a sudden you can theoretically store millions, billions, trillions of dollars in your mind. How are they going to enforce those types of laws. I think that's a very important conversation. I think long term, I think that's a good thing. I think that people voting with their wallet is a good thing. You know, as much as you see California, for example, was talking about introducing a so-called exit tax. You see this in Canada. You see Roger Ver arrested not too long ago because he didn't pay the taxes for the exit tax. I think more and more people are going to vote with their feet, right? And I think governments, you know, as predicted in the book, The Sovereign Individual, are not going to react very friendly to that. I think they're going to try to keep as many people inside the matrix, so to speak. So anyways, it's going to be a great show. Lots to unpack, lots to talk about today. I want to bring legendary co-host who's always optimistic. Opti, how you doing today?
I am doing wonderful, man. You can never complain when you're living on the Bitcoin standard. When your whole worldview has been reprogrammed because of Bitcoin, everything is great. And even though we are in the midst of, I've said this before, even though we're in the midst of like peak clown world, everything's great when you live in Bitcoin. Even though peak clown world can continue to peak, and it's probably going to get crazier. Man, life's great. It's super good just being a Bitcoiner, and everyone else is freaking out. And you're just like, man, life's wonderful. What are you guys even talking about? Everything's going exactly as planned. So yeah, man, life's good. I woke up good and got some good sleep. You know, people are showing up to the show. Everything's going exactly as we've foreseen. We got rich people now buying Bitcoin, even though it's paper Bitcoin. And, you know, I think the world's waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is the superior money. So, hey, man, everything's great, Nico. Everything's great.
It's almost as if we're winning.
It's almost as if we are correct. Who would have thought? Who would have thought the 80 IQ Bitcoiners were the correct one to the room?
It's almost as if we're winning. Anyways, I do want to bring up our very special guy, Daz B from the land down under. How you doing, man?
Super good morning to you, boys. It's 2 a.m. here, but the vibes are high. The highest octane show on the internet. So
let's go.
Really pumped to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us, brother. Why don't you give a little Opti? Why don't you give the audience
so
what we're going to talk about during the
some
culture?
context with Daz. So he is a part of Looking Glass Education. He's also a Bitcoin educator. He wrote the book B for Bitcoin. But what I really want to talk about is what Daz has been talking about recently, and it's the idea of the insights you have with Bitcoin fixing energy bills and for consumers and energy markets. So we're going to talk about an idea that I really enjoy, is that once Bitcoin is ubiquitous with energy is when this thing really gets kicked into overdrive. So we're going to have some good insights into that today in the culture. And then, of course, we'll talk about all the projects that Daz is working on. So it's going to be a good show, guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. But before we do that, I want to give an extremely special shout out to the Bitcoin company that powers this show. And of course, I'm talking about bitcoinwell.com. Bitcoinwell.com is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. It is a self-custody by default, future-proof your money. What does self-custody by default means? That means that you can't buy Bitcoin on Bitcoinwell unless you are going to take self-custody, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state, because after all, self-custody is the revolution. Support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps and go to bitcoinwell.com today. Once you visit the website, you can literally just put in your username, your email address. You can get started. The process literally takes like no more than like 2 to 3 minutes. You put in all your information, you put in your bank account, and you could start stacking sats. There's a clear, transparent 1% spread with the 1% fee, which is transparent across the industry and which is standard across the industry. Obviously, it's a Bitcoin only platform and it's non-custodial. That's the key, ladies and gentlemen. As the separation of money and state accelerates, we want self-custody. We want non-custodial solutions, right? Because if people see the convenient option, they're going to use it. You want individuals all over the world taking the personal responsibility of learning how to take self-custody. And the way that you do that is by using a self-custody by default on-ramp, because it forces you. You have to take self-custody or you can't buy Bitcoin, right? So guys, go to bitcoinwell.com today. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simply to get started and help us enable independence with Bitcoin Well. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. We have a lot to talk about.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, everybody, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You could scan the QR code on your screen or check the link in the video description. That will take you directly to the Stamp Seed website, where you can use promo code SIMPLY to get yourself a titanium Stamp Seed storage kit, so you don't have to explain to your grandchildren why you lost your generational wealth because you decided to store your seed phrase on paper. Don't put yourself in that situation. Get yourself a Stamp Seed storage kit. Promo code SIMPLY, 15% off. All right, at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $61,450. Block height 843,448 sats per dollar. 1,627. Bitcoin price in gold. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. 26.3 ounces. Market cap 1.12 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 7.53%. Percentage issued 93.8%. Declined from all-time high 16.7. Forward monetary inflation continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. That's right, Christine Lagarde. It's at 0.85%. Realized monetary inflation 1.67%. Across the board, Bitcoin is still winning, and we're just getting started. We're only at 7.53% the market cap of gold. Once Bitcoin reaches the market cap of gold, that's like $600,000 per fucking Bitcoin. That's absolutely awesome. Anyways, I wanted to show you guys this. We've been seeing these videos across the internet of just people freaking out saying like, look, I don't understand. I have 2 jobs. I'm doing everything that I can. I'm playing by the rules. I have my college degree, whatever, and I still can't make ends meet. What is going on? Like, people inherently know the system is broken. They continue to seek a political solution when there isn't a political solution to this, ladies and gentlemen. The solution is fixing the money, right? And we keep seeing these videos, and they're absolutely tragic, because I really do believe in Jeff Booth's theory that technology should make the world essentially deflationary. Things should get naturally cheaper over time, not more expensive, right? But the world has been psyoped into thinking that somehow money needs to lose purchasing power in order for it to exist, right? We need to break this psyop as Bitcoiners. And remember, it's not left versus right. It's not red versus blue. It's the party of orange, the party of Bitcoin, opportunity, peace, prosperity, deflation versus the party of green, the party of inflation, nihilism, poverty, slavery, usury, all those horrible things. And that's really what's going on. So support people on the party of orange, and don't support people on the party of green. Because if you're on the party of green, man, like you support endless wars, you support human suffering, you support nihilism, right? You support poverty, or you support, a special privileged elite that play by a different set of rules. Everyone else, gets screwed. Anyways, here's Marty Bent. Shrinkflation is here. pretty soon sharing the Wendy's Where's the Beef ad campaign from the 1980s will be considered economic hate speech as the regime becomes even more desperate in their attempts to make people believe that everything is fine. And make no mistake, do you guys remember, we played you guys that video like 100 times, where the White House press secretary was literally trying to tell you that Thanksgiving was cheaper than it was last year? Like, they can't explain this, so they have to gaslight you. They have to, like, we played you guys a video of Yuval Harari yesterday. He was rolled out, put on stage by the folks over at the Bank of International Settlements, and he was just like, "Yeah, we want currency. Like, I don't like Bitcoin because it's a currency of mistrust. We should use currencies of more trust because the last century has shown how good that was for the world." Like, dude, I don't know what you're smoking, but the reason that people mistrust government currencies is because you guys not only debase it, you guys not only steal everyone's purchasing power, but you can't even take personal responsibility and admit to what you're doing. You change the numbers, you gaslight the people, you roll out the Treasury Secretary, and she tells the entire audience basically saying like, "Hey, you know what? There's going to be no inflation." 2 years later, I was wrong about the inflation thing. You know, meanwhile, everyone gets wrecked who took her word for it. So anyways, check out this video. It comes from TikTok. Let's check it out.
Now, McDonald's, however you want to say this shit, y'all be shaming y'allself. Got a Big Mac, right? I was like, damn, this shit thin. Look at this patty. Y'all, it's so thin. What? McDonald's. You can see through this motherfucker. I'm not finna eat this. This damn near $10 meal and you give me this thick. Can y'all see how thin it is? Matter of fact, let's see how thin it is to the pickle. The pickle thicker than the patty. Come on now, McDonald's. Y'all know better than this. This is shame. You ought to be shamed.
So a couple things here, right? So thing number one is governments have been blaming inflation and the rising prices on corporations, right? On businesses. Another thing also as well is the way that she's saying it. Like, McDonald's, like, why are you doing this? Then if she gets enough people to feel that way, that McDonald's is screwing her over, you know, there's enough political willpower, government passes a law, forces McDonald's to increase the size of the patty. McDonald's has to raise the prices again. Then people get like Pikachu face meme, like surprise, like, wait, what do you mean? I don't understand. Government isn't the solution here. And people got to wake up to this reality. Government is not the solution. Government is the problem, specifically when it comes to money. They're going to exacerbate it. They're going to make things worse. It reminds me of like the minimum salary laws that are passed. It reminds me of that, right? Like, and then they pass the minimum salary laws. Then the price of the whatever products or goods you're purchasing from that place that just raised their minimum salaries goes up, and people are like, wow, this is so expensive. Like, there's unintended consequences to this. But what it boils down to, because people wouldn't ask for more of a salary, what people are really asking for is, even if it's indirectly, why is it that I can't make ends meet? Why is it that my purchasing power is decreasing? And what us Bitcoiners fundamentally understand is it has nothing to do with raising the minimum wage. It has nothing to do with not working hard enough, or has nothing to do with that. It has to do with you're using the wrong unit of account, right? We always reference this website, and you should too if you have someone who's a detractor of Bitcoin in your family. And the reason that we use this website is because it prices everything in Bitcoin. And here's the thing. If your salary, if you've been earning in dollars, you've been earning 92% less in the last 5 years. Imagine if you put a portion of your salary into Bitcoin, right? It's literally a cheat code, right? Oil is 91% cheaper. Gold, 91% cheaper. The S&P 500, 75% cheaper. A house, even with housing prices going absolutely bonkers through the roof here in the United States, 85% cheaper over the last 5 years. Over the last 3 years, 72% cheaper. You guys get the general gist of it, though, is that you've just been using the wrong unit of account. Now, what happens if McDonald's starts to adopt a Bitcoin standard? What happens if this lady starts to adopt a Bitcoin standard? Right? Imagine if the whole world adopted a Bitcoin standard, right? Things would fundamentally change, and they would change for the better, right? But we still have a lot of work to do as Bitcoiners, as a community, because she's correctly identified the problem, but that doesn't mean anything if she doesn't identify the issue, right? It's not a political solution to this. The solution is to opt out and to vote with your wallet. Just opt out of the system entirely. Your money is screwing me. It's not working for me. I'm going to choose to earn in something that doesn't debase, doesn't steal from me, isn't easily confiscated, is censorship resistant. That's the solution to this. And our responsibility as Bitcoiners over the next 5 to 10 years is really wake up people to this reality that fixing the money truly does fix the world. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this?
No, yeah, let's go to Daz first, because I'm really just going to troll this out. So, Daz, what's your take on this?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And look, shrinkflation, inflation, these are all insidious drips. And if there's one thing I'm actually kind of grateful for is the fact that it's started to accelerate to the point where people are starting to notice it, because we've suffered this since we left the gold standard, 1970s onward. It's been an insidious drip against wage earners. And when it's 2 or 3%, nobody notices, right? But now it's starting to be in your face, and I think I shouldn't be laughing at that poor lady in a Big Mac, but like, I think that the pickle's thicker than the patty, right? That's going to be a meme that outlasts this next cycle. I think that kind of thing. And I think the biggest overall theme for people to really understand is that, yes, we are living in should be a deflationary world, but the whole system is built on debt. So they need this inflation because they need to inflate away their debt, because they know they're not paying that back anymore. So the system is actually working against you, actively working against you. When you point towards government to save me, they're not going to save you. You need to opt out. The only path through to salvation is through Bitcoin.
Amen to that. Opti, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so let me full screen myself, because I am so glad we can finally talk about the important things here, is how damn expensive McDonald's is getting. I think everyone knows how much I love McDonald's, and I haven't been able to buy it because it's too damn expensive. No, actually, I haven't been eating McDonald's, but I've been getting trolled out for a while because, hey, I still enjoy McDonald's every once in a while. Yeah, throw tomatoes all you want. But I think this is something we've been talking about, and I'm so glad that this is finally getting out just to, the average person, the normie-verse, if you will, let me put it in that phrasing. But shrinkflation confirmed. They can gaslight us all they want. They've been telling us that, things are getting cheaper, that your dollar is going farther, every holiday, that CPI isn't going up as high. Inflation isn't as bad as we thought it was, guys. You're not getting as quickly poor as you thought it was. Like, just continue to buy your McDonald's and, don't worry about it. But everyone is waking up to the same thing. Everything is getting too expensive. And for some reason, I'm getting the Bernie Sanders meme in my head right now, where he's like, I am once again here to tell you everything is too damn expensive. We must, raise minimum wage, and we must lower the prices. Or even what was Biden came out a couple of days ago, or no, probably a couple of weeks ago now, where he was saying that whole, we're going to stop corporations from gouging you and all this stuff. And we're here on the show constantly telling you guys that don't blame the corporations. They're just trying to keep up with inflation, and this is the inevitable outcome. Is that the pickles are thicker than the patties? The prices are too damn high. But to Nico's point, I really do think that people are waking up to the lies, and to Daz's point as well. I think people are starting to trust themselves a little bit and realize that, look, we're being bombarded with so much propaganda, so many lies, that now it's very hard to avoid the fact that your dollar isn't going as far as you thought it was. You know, like people go to McDonald's, you know, one, because it's delicious, obviously, and two, because they think that eating healthy is too expensive. But then when you go to a McDonald's, you realize, like, wait, what happened to my Big Mac? I remember growing up when a Big Mac used to be huge. Do you guys remember how big a Big Mac used to be? It used to be like, it used to be the name, a Big Mac. It used to be big. Now you look at it and it's like, it's tiny. It's absolutely ridiculous that inflation has destroyed the Big Mac. I'm going to die on this hill. The Big Mac used to be delicious. But life is getting more expensive if you're not saving in Bitcoin. If you're not on the Bitcoin standard personally, and you're just living paycheck to paycheck and you're not saving in Bitcoin, I am a Big Mac extremist, confirmed. Actually, I haven't eaten Big Mac. I haven't eaten McDonald's in months, guys. This is an old meme. So, like, it's an old meme that I love Bitcoin or Big Mac. I do love Bitcoin, but it's an old meme. People in the chat that know me know I'm trolling this out a little bit because I enjoy Big Mac every once in a while. Sue me. But the point remains the same. Shrinkflation is actually happening. And anyone that goes to the grocery store or even goes and eats fiat food, they understand one thing. Things are getting more expensive and you are getting less full when you eat these foods. So something is going on. And no amount of propaganda or gaslighting coming out from the quote unquote official institutions can convince you otherwise. You are not getting as much as you used to. And that's because the dollar isn't able to save value like it used to. This is why corporations are minimizing, you know, everything. This is why shrinkflation is a thing. I'm sure if you still eat what we would call fiat foods here, you know, chips and candies and fast food, you realize that things are getting smaller a little bit, or they're adding more air into your chips, or, you know, like the Snickers bar. Look, guys, I love Snickers bars. They're delicious, but they cut them in two and now they're smaller. Like, what is going on? No amount of financial trickery, or rather fiat trickery, can convince people over time that you are getting less for your dollar. And this is what people are waking up to. And it's something that I think we're seeing in an extreme version in every part of society, is that people are waking up to the lies. And it usually starts with the money. Once people start to realize that their money isn't going as far as they used to, then they start to question things, and they maybe eventually get to the idea of what is money. And maybe they start to second guess the official narratives coming out, and they realize that the very people that are here to quote unquote protect us are probably the very people that you should stop listening to, because they are hurting you more than their quote unquote experts would lead you on to believe. You need to trust yourself. You need to verify these things for yourself. Don't trust the experts. I remember growing up in an era where critical thinking was applauded, where they would say, hey, you know, don't trust everything you read. You know, now we have the new meme, like, don't trust everything you read on the internet. But like, I love the idea of don't trust, verify. And I think people are verifying this, you know, like the pickles are thicker than the patties now. What is going on here? Because shrinkflation is actually happening, and no amount of gaslighting coming out from official quote unquote institutions can convince people otherwise, that their money isn't going as far, as because things are more expensive. We're not getting as much food as we used to in the grocery store. Even McDonald's is getting more expensive, and the food is less. So these are, I think, the initial symptoms that people will be led down the Bitcoin path. Once you realize, wait, I'm getting poorer. Why can't I get full on $15 anymore? Why is every time I go out minimum $20 for everything I buy, and I haven't changed my order? Like, this is how you lead people down the path that, hey, everything is getting decimated right now because fiat currencies are going out of control, and you need to save in something that they cannot be that they can't debase, which is, of course, simply Bitcoin.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. I do want to give a very, 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 very special shout out to our sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the Pleb Party that is happening in Nashville, Tennessee. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or you can go to plebpartynashville.com. Get your tickets quickly. There's only about 200 tickets left at the current stand. I mixed that up. There's currently like 50 tickets left at the $200 price point. So you want to get your tickets before they run out. They ran out last year in Miami when it was hosted in Miami. It sold sold out 8 days before the event. So what is the Pleb Party in Nashville? If you're going to the Bitcoin 2024 conference, which is the largest Bitcoin conference in the United States, this is a party the day before the conference. So Thursday, July 25th, there's going to be a 12-hour open bar from noon to midnight Pleb Party the day before the biggest Bitcoin conference. Confirmed attendees include Larry Lepard, Preston Pish, the entire Simply Bitcoin crew, included Nico, Opti, Rustin, James Lavish, Robert Breedlove, Mark Moss, Pubby, Tatum Turnup. It's going to be hosted at an amazing venue, a rustic automobile factory from 1910 with brick walls and tons of proof of work atmosphere. There's over 1,000 Bitcoin plebs that are expected to be attending. You definitely don't want to miss the Pleb Party at Bitcoin Nashville 2024. Opti and I are going to be there. Again, there's only 50 tickets left at the current $200 price point, completely open bar, so the drinks are included. Definitely want to see you guys at the Pleb Party. Get your tickets while supplies last. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. We have a lot to talk about today.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. It's incredibly easy for you guys. You could scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the Passport by Foundation Devices website, where you guys can get yourself a Passport hardware wallet. Guys, if you're enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 100 likes within the first hour of the show. Currently sitting at 96 likes on YouTube, about 3 likes or a little bit more on Rumble, and some likes on X as well. So you guys are enjoying the show. Help us with the algos. Smash that like button. Helps push the orange signal forward. Anyways, so back in the day when this news dropped about roughly 2 years ago, Michael Saylor said that there's going to be 3 things that take Bitcoin to $5 million. Before I play this, some of those things have already happened. And one of those things is on the verge of happening. It's currently there's like a law being discussed, and the big news, I think the big kahuna, is the fact that Wells Fargo and the Wisconsin Investment Board have made major investments, not specifically into self-custody Bitcoin, which would be the ideal. I think inevitably it's going to lead to that. But they have made investments into getting exposure to the spot Bitcoin ETF. Anyways, guys, let's check out this clip.
Catalyst for that 10x is it really is the moment that JP Morgan Chase or other big money center banks can custody these for large corporates. That's it. That's the sea change, because there's really no reason why they shouldn't be diversifying the assets on their balance sheet. Is that your take? Because I know that, like Tim Cook, I don't know where it came from earlier this week. He said something like, I own some Bitcoin, but we have no designs on anything. Or I don't know if he said Bitcoin or crypto in general. Is that the thing? And then
I think there's 3 big. Look, first of all, it's going up by a factor of 10 whether they fix any of the stuff, right? It's going to go it's going to be a grind up by a factor of 10 just because gold is broken and Bitcoin's going to replace gold. And now everybody in the universe knows they need a non-sovereign store of value in the form of a bearer instrument. So now they're looking, the amount of stories, for last year, people said inflation may be coming, we're not sure. Now the mainstream narrative is flipped to inflation is here, you need an inflation hedge. So it's going to grind up to replace gold. It'll go to $500,000 a coin, regardless of whether they fix these things. But there are three things that are massive catalysts that cause an acceleration. And I don't think that those three things don't take us to 500,000. They take us to 5 million a coin, right? Those three things are a spot ETF where someone can go ahead and buy $100 million of Bitcoin, buy a security, an ETF security. I think that's one. Two is your bank is going to custody it for you and lend against it. And three is I can mark it up or mark it down on my balance sheet based on fair value. Pari passu. It'll be pari passu to the way I'd handle Apple stock, or at least that good. If you have property with fair value accounting, by the way, it becomes pari passu to the way you'd handle treasury bonds on a treasury balance sheet. Treasuries are better than stocks because treasury is property, whereas a stock is a security, and you're capped out at 40% of your balance sheet as security. So it would be a major, major breakthrough if you saw any of those three things. And I'll end with this one observation. I tweeted this last week, but I think it's very powerful. It's if the banks can hold this stuff on their balance sheet, then a whole new class of investors are going to buy it. People are going to put in billion and multi-billion-dollar orders to buy it as a treasury asset. Nobody's going to sell it because there's no reason to sell it if you can borrow against it at LIBOR plus or SOFR plus 50 basis points, right? So you'll be borrowing against Bitcoin at SOFR plus 50 or SOFR plus 100 basis points. No one's ever going to sell it. And then, as I joked, you won't be able to afford it. I mean, you will be able to afford it, but everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. When the bank,
Boom. Three things: FASB accounting rules, banks are going to be able to custody it, and then thing number one is the BlackRock or the ETFs. As you could tell, the ETFs have been incredibly successful. The BlackRock holds, more than 250,000 Bitcoin. Fidelity, it's up there. People can't, these ETFs, they can't stop stacking. And of course, that's a reflection of the institutional interest in Bitcoin. And we're going to get into what some of that institutional interest is, right? So the other thing he said is the change in the FASB accounting rules. And he mentioned this word pari passu, which just means equal to. And essentially the way that accounting rules worked before is that you couldn't really reflect the ups and the downs properly. So it kind of became a little bit of an accounting nightmare for a lot of these corporations and stuff. And then the news of the day, I would say the headline is Wells Fargo. So Wells Fargo, I believe it's the second largest bank in the United States, or the third largest bank. I got to change the title. The third largest bank now owns the spot Bitcoin ETF. So it goes on to say in a recent filing with the SEC, Wells Fargo, one of the largest banks in the United States, disclosed its exposure to spot Bitcoin ETF. According to the filing, Wells Fargo holds position in Grayscale's spot Bitcoin ETF, the BlackRock ETF, and shares in Bitcoin Depot Inc., marking a notable entry into the Bitcoin market. Spot Bitcoin ETFs enable investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin's price movements without directly owning the asset. You guys know that. The news of Wells Fargo's spot Bitcoin ETF exposure comes amid a broader trend of institutional adoption of Bitcoin, with several major banks and financial institutions exploring ways to incorporate BTC into their offerings and get exposure to the asset. Earlier this week, investment firm Giant Susquehanna International Group revealed an SEC filing that it holds $1.8 billion in spot Bitcoin and other Bitcoin ETFs, joining the wave of massive financial institutions disclosing their exposure to BTC. Now, the latest news is coming. It's a state. It's a U.S. state. Guys, this all plays into it. Like, if you have these, if you have Wells Fargo, if you have this, very well respected large financial institution that has exposure to Bitcoin, like, how do you think they're going to feel if any government passes a regulation. And remember, at the end of the day, you can make a very solid case that BlackRock controls the U.S. government, right? You can make a really good case for that. What do you think happens if they try to pass any type of anti-Bitcoin legislation? They're going to get a call. Those politicians are going to call and say, hey, those donations that I'm giving you so you can get reelected, that doesn't work for me anymore, right? And then all of a sudden they're going to change tune, right? So anyways, Wisconsin Investment Board becomes first state pension to buy spot Bitcoin ETFs, and they hold over $162 million worth. Goes on today, the state of Wisconsin Investment Board has revealed its substantial investments in Bitcoin exchange traded funds through a recent filing with the SEC. According to the filings, SWIB holds nearly $100 million worth of BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF. This disclosure marks SWIB as the first state-level institution to publicly announce its holdings in spot Bitcoin ETFs, signaling a notable step in the integration of Bitcoin into traditional investment portfolios. It goes on to say, here's just a reaction. Whoa, a state pension bought iBit in first quarter. Normally, you don't get these big fish institutions in the 13Fs for a year or so. So, I mean, it's accelerated, right? It's accelerated. And I would say, yes, this is a massive kind of escalation. I remember the French bank that bought the BlackRock ETF. They only bought like a couple $1 million worth. It was absolutely nothing. For an institution of that size. So for the state of Wisconsin to feel so confident about the future of Bitcoin and about, the Bitcoin's potential future price accumulation, that they put $162 million behind it, it's an absolute massive deal. Now, another thing that tells me we're over the target, we covered this on last week's episode. There was a recent bill that went through the House and passed the House that would essentially allow for regulated. Here's the specific thing. It would essentially allow large regulated financial institutions to custody Bitcoin, right? The White House stepped in, and we all know how the current administration feels about the industry, and basically said, like, even though it passed the House, I don't know what it's going to do in the Senate. They said, no, we're going to veto this completely. Right. So, the executive branch, which is very hostile towards the industry, they're not pro it. Right. They proposed a 30% Bitcoin mining tax. That tells me that, once again, that something's happening. Right. And I think they're freaked out. Because what happens when the state of Wisconsin starts benefiting from number go up? What happens when Wells Fargo, one of America's most powerful banks, largest banks, starts benefiting from number go up? Do you think they're going to be okay with, these shenanigans that are being played by the executive branch? No, they're not going to be okay with it at all. Here's Beautyon, the founder of Azteco, and he says, this is interesting. Wisconsin, if it passes any law that touches Bitcoin, will not only be breaking their solemn oath to protect and uphold the Constitution, but they will be acting against the best interest of the investment they've made in the ETF. Anyone who's invested in Bitcoin ETFs has a vested interest in seeing consumer Bitcoin in sweeping the entire world as quickly as possible. Funny how that works in it. And this is what we mean. We've said this many times, that the reason that we believe Bitcoin will win is because it has superior incentives versus government is completely reliant on coercion. They coerce people into using fiat currencies. They coerce people into using the things that they don't want to use, right? Bitcoin's just incentives. Like the state of Wisconsin isn't like, oh, let's just buy Bitcoin for shits and giggles. They're buying Bitcoin because they think number will go up, right? Wells Fargo wouldn't be getting exposure to BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF if they didn't think number will go up. And what's going to happen when their allocation to Bitcoin starts outperforming gold? right? If Wisconsin has, if they have exposure to gold. What starts to happen if Bitcoin starts outperforming everything else they have an allocation on? You know what they're going to do? They're going to increase their Bitcoin allocation. What's that going to do to the price? Number go up, right? So Bitcoin is going to win because it has superior incentives. Bitcoin gives you a cheat code once you adopt a Bitcoin standard. Any state that has not, added Bitcoin to their portfolio is at a disadvantage. Any bank that hasn't added Bitcoin to their strategy or their portfolio, their allocation, is at a disadvantage, right? So this is what we mean. Bitcoin's incentives are going to rule the day, and they got nothing against us but coercion. This is happening a lot faster. I agree with that Bloomberg analyst's take. This is happening a lot faster than I anticipated, and right before the next run-up. We're having a little bit of a cool-down phase. I don't know if it's going to last another month or two, but I believe that the end of the year should be absolute fireworks for Bitcoin's price. So I'm going to start off with Opti first, and then we'll hear from Daz.
Yeah, well, I think the question that everyone is asking, especially right now, is like, if these big institutions are buying Bitcoin, why isn't the price going up? Well, I think it's because everyone knows they're buying paper Bitcoin, but it will soon enough, especially when you consider what Saylor was saying. And that, like, I love that it's 2 years old and now it's playing up exactly as foreseen, but also a lot quicker than any of us could thought. That those three massive catalysts, they're well underway. And then we just had the halving, and we haven't even seen retail FOMO yet. And, not to really talk about the GameStop stuff, but you guys know where this is going to lead once the retail starts FOMOing into Bitcoin and they realize that Bitcoin is the real GameStop. So Bitcoin is the undisputed champion as the hardest money in the world. It's the hardest money to create. And now we're seeing that everyone is starting to wake up to this. Yes, of course, as we've been saying for a while, these institutions move a lot slower than the average retail investor out there, or quote unquote retail speculator, whatever you want to call them. So you will see the trickling of investments and institutions going into Bitcoin. But I think we're going to see, today might be the last day that these institutions have to file whether they were investing in these ETFs or not. And I'm sure we're going to see some more big names pop out by today or tomorrow. And also, Nico, I don't know if you saw, but Wells Fargo isn't the only big bank that has officially been buying Bitcoin ETFs. We saw UBS in Switzerland also disclose that they're buying the BlackRock ETF. So it's not just happening in the United States. This is happening globally.
No. They deleted that tweet.
Oh, did that?
Yeah,
I have it right here.
Is it still up?
It's still up. Here, let's see. I'll pull it up.
I didn't bring that up specifically because someone deleted it. So if it's still up, yeah, it's still up. So yeah, also big news as well. I didn't want to bring that up because I thought someone retracted that. But yes, UBS, Switzerland's largest bank, now has an allocation to Bitcoin. And sprinkle that on top of everything that we just said. And how could you not be bullish for what's to come? The next 18 months are going to be absolute freaking fireworks, bro. Holy shit.
Yeah,
look,
exactly.
I think people, I'll say this. I'll say this too, right? What I'm seeing this cycle is an opposite of what I saw last cycle. Last cycle, I saw kind of like people were overhyped. Like they were like 100K guaranteed. What I'm seeing this cycle is the exact polar opposite of that. And the general consensus is, 120K Bitcoin, 150K Bitcoin. And Bitcoin tends to do the exact opposite of what everyone thinks. If the general consensus is only thinking 120, 150K Bitcoin, and then they sell at those prices, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? Right? So again, maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, right? Maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, but I've been here for 8 years and you tend to learn some things along the way. Anyways, Opti, what were you saying?
Yeah. And just to add up, it's like scarcity is playing out in real time and everyone is waking up to the facts that we all know as Bitcoiners that we constantly talk about, is that everyone has the same problem. no one wants to lose their money. Everyone is figuring out ways to keep their money going into the future. Everyone wants to save their money for themselves and their family and their kids and their kids' kids. And we all have the same problem. The money is broken. Fiat is a scam. And now we're seeing that we've gotten to, remember, Nico, we've been talking about this as Bitcoiners for a long time. Like, the institutions are coming. Well, like, now they're here and everyone is still bearish and they're like, oh, this isn't how I wanted Bitcoin adoption to happen. It's like, we've been knowing that this was going to happen for a while. And now we're seeing that they're waking up to it. And it's like a Titanic. It's going to take a little while for them to fully allocate into Bitcoin. We're going to see, maybe we're going to have some laggards coming up from the institutions, but everyone is having these conversations right now. And you better believe that they are having these meetings right now talking about, wow, should we be buying some Bitcoin? And so, like we're saying, all these factors are going to play into the Bitcoin price going absolutely nuclear. And a couple more things. First, shout out to our boy Dom Bay, because he's been beating the drum on pension funds needing Bitcoin. Now we saw Wisconsin finally took the leap. So he's been ahead of the game. And I think it's also comes with what we've said for a while, that this is further proof that Bitcoin is going to be the defining topic of conversation and be ubiquitous with wealth accumulation, wealth concentration. And this is why I think in the elections coming up, it's going to be one of the defining conversations as well, is like, what is your stance on Bitcoin? And now everyone is waking up to this idea that, you know, you're either for Bitcoin or you're against freedom. So this is where we are right now. And if you want to preserve your wealth, you need Bitcoin. And my last point, Nico, and you can censor me all you want, and YouTube can censor me all they want. But you know how the feds keep saying that Bitcoin is for criminals? Well, now it's really true, because Wells Fargo owns Bitcoin and they're the biggest financial criminal in the world. So here we are. And also last meme, last troll, Bitcoin is cheese, hence why Wisconsin gets it. All right, Daz, what's your thoughts?
Oh man, Opti's on fire today. All right, Daz, what are your thoughts, my friend?
Hitting the fire. First of all, $5 million a coin. Michael, why so bearish? All this stuff going on.
Let's go.
Yeah. Look, I think this institution adoption things, we're not even scratching the surface of what's to come. Like these accounting rules. So the two major barriers for institutional adoption was, one was the rails to actually buy it. So the ETFs just make that so much cleaner, so much easier for them. And that also solves the custody issue. Why we find value in Bitcoin, right, is our ability to take self-custody. We got these institutions. It's like, there's no way I want the CEO holding the keys to institutional wealth, right? So I think in one way that ETF just allows these institutions to get exposure to Bitcoin in a way that's not a threat to a rug pull from those closest to the to the decision making. And the accounting rules was the other major barrier. If you're going to put this on your treasury, it's really hard to deal with this volatile asset if you can't mark it up. So it affects negatively to your balance sheet. So those accounting rule changes, which I don't think come into effect until December this year, I believe, but that's going to be a real game changer. And you add all of that to the normal speculative froth that we get around bull markets, which is normally retail driven. Again, mum and dad and grandma and grandpa can now get exposure to Bitcoin through the click of a button. Again, as Bitcoiners, we've got a heap of work to do to educate these people on custody, and because that's why we attribute value to Bitcoin, because of this idea around being able to self-custody this Bitcoin. So we can't rest on our laurels. Us Bitcoiners have to keep this educational fight going to make sure that people know how to take self-custody. Yeah.
Well, can I add to what Daz just said? Because I think that's a very important aspect. It's like, yes, we do have a lot of work educating people to take Bitcoin into self-custody. But as we are seeing right now with everyone and their mother and their grandmother wanting to get some Bitcoin ETF exposure, that Bitcoin has been legitimized in the eyes of the average person. And now they just need to take that next step and be like, you want to hold this yourself and don't trust the middlemen. So I love that point, Daz.
100%. 100%. All right, everybody. Before we move on to the culture and talk to Daz and see what he's working on these days, I do want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. The Orange Pill app is Bitcoin's social layer. Find local Bitcoiners, events, and merchants. You could do that by downloading the Orange Pill app today. Join the 10,137 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. It's a great resource for messaging Bitcoiners that are near you. Has a really cool geographical feature. So if you travel to a new city, or let's say you don't know any Bitcoiners in the city that you live, you open up the Orange Pill app. It will literally tell you what Bitcoiners are around you, and it'll allow you to send them a message directly. It's probably a good idea to build up that Bitcoin Rolodex over the next 5 to 10 years. I believe that Bitcoiners are going to be some of those powerful, influential, wealthiest people on the face of the planet. So it's probably a good idea to stack friends who stack sats. It's a great resource to message Opti and I. We take the time to message every single one of you guys back. So download the Orange Pill app today, scan the QR code, or check the link in the video description. All right, everybody, let's move on to the culture. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go.
The Daily Culture.
Everybody, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, KABOOMRACKS. They are the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. You can check out the racks by scanning the QR code on your screen or checking the link in the video description. I also want to mention their current deal, which is live right now. They're offering instant hosting for the S19K Pro 120 terahashes. There's a one-time payment of $2,466 plus $160 per month thereafter. Your hash rate goes online after your payment is confirmed, which is why it's called instant hosting. This isn't a hash rate contract. You own the miner. The price includes a 3-month security deposit and first month. So if you guys want to start hosting instantly, check out KABOOMRACKS today, scan the QR code, or check the link in the video description. All right, Opti, it's all yours, my friend.
All right, so here we go. Super excited for this conversation because Daz, if you guys aren't familiar with him, and he keeps telling us, he's an expert in energy grids, transmission networks, power markets, energy generation, and renewables. And he's got insights into Bitcoin, how it fixes your energy bills for consumers and energy markets. So that's what we're going to talk about for the bulk of this, and then we'll talk about his project afterward. So Daz, I'm going to just give you the floor. Where do you think is a good place to start here? And then we'll jump in a little bit when we want to clarify a few things.
Yep. So my passion is the intersection between Bitcoin and energy grid. So as an electrician, I'm an electrician as a pleb, work on the grid from day to day. So this is where I spend most of my time and space thinking about how Bitcoin fixes energy grids. And I think the real game changer for consumers of energy, like we've been speaking about, this notion of increased prices everywhere we look, and we're definitely feeling that in your energy bills, right? Your electricity bills at home, they're starting to get really, really quite frothy, and people are starting to feel the pinch. And really what the game changer is, why energy grids and energy and electricity prices are so expensive, is because they're super, super, super inefficient. And why that is, I guess, is a great place to start. So when we build an energy grid, we optimize for what we call maximum peak demand. So that is the worst case scenario throughout the year, where we have everybody coming home from school. The kids come home from school, mum and dad start cooking dinner, the air conditioners go on, the gaming machines go on, and that's our maximum peak demand. So when we build an energy grid, we've got to have enough capacity in this energy grid to be able to sustain that maximum demand. But what normally happens is that that's only a small portion, a small percentage of the day, and then even a small percentage of the year, through summer or winter, depending on where you're living and where your energy, heating or cooling needs are. So where the opportunity exists to reduce overall consumer bills, overall electricity costs, is this delta between a normal load base and our maximum profitable operating region for grid. And that's really where Bitcoin mining slots right in. In the past, with energy grids and energy flows and the control of generational resources, we're always focused on the supply side of that energy grid, which means we're always optimizing for the generators. We're always trying to control the generator load flows. Really, where the opportunity lies, which is a game changer with Bitcoin mining, is demand side control. So we can introduce new players into this grid, new revenue sources. And the real game changer with what has come with Bitcoin mining versus how we've been able to do this in the past is our ability to control, transport, introduce a flexible, controllable load that we can ramp up and down with the needs of the grid, so that when we are competing with this maximum demand, when mum and dad come home, we can actually send signals to these Bitcoin miners to ramp back down. And what that really does, quite simply, is just improve the economics of a grid, which reduces overall consumption costs.
Absolutely incredible. All right. And just jumping in a little bit, I absolutely love the idea that like real hyper Bitcoinization happens once energy markets are priced in Bitcoin and obviously like not priced in the dollar. We're not on this petrodollar system. So we're seeing some inklings of this happening right now where, we have, I forget all the news were coming out, but a lot of people using like flared gas now and they're mining Bitcoin with it. But how long do you think this will take? Are we just going to see certain players jump into Bitcoin, maybe pricing some energy in Bitcoin? Like, what's your thoughts on that idea of Bitcoin being a unit of account for energy and how that really changes the game?
Well, some of the greatest thought leaders in and around electricity and inventors throughout history have always prophesized that we will price energy in kilowatt hours. We'll price money in kilowatt hours. Like energy will be the base layer of monetary value and monetary transactions. So we've never had the ability to directly tie a monetary good to the use of energy before, and that's what Bitcoin absolutely does. And I think the real game changer is also the ability with micropayments. Once we introduce like a Lightning network where you can pay for real-time energy use. We've never been able to process micropayments to that scale before. So we've never been able to directly monetize and directly bill for your consumption. So you can actually start streaming electricity, right? This is an absolute game changer. So I think with the second layers and the micropayment enablement, as well as directly being able to tie energy, a monetary good directly to the use of energy, I think it's inevitable. I don't know what that time window looks like, but that's where I think it's only going to be a natural evolution, and it's only a matter of time and not when.
Absolutely incredible. Okay, and kind of pivoting a little bit, you did talk about being an electrician and a tradesman. And so I do kind of want to ask, like, what is the general consensus of the tradesmen that you talk to when you talk about Bitcoin today? I know, like, as a tradesman, you do have, like, you make good money. If you have a service and you have a trade, you definitely have money. And you were telling me that they look for places to invest. So, like, what's the general consensus via a tradesman looking at Bitcoin that you've encountered recently?
I think generally just tradespeople are kind of technical. Okay, so there's a base, and we're used to this concept of proof of work. We get our hands dirty, we make things, we fix things. So it's usually quite an easy get, right? When once people start to understand, when they're looking around, they're seeing prices start to increase, and starting to look at, well, I can't invest, or I can't sustain my lifestyle to the degree in which I want. They're starting to look for answers, and I think that concept of being directly tied to that notion of physical work, once you understand proof of work, it's a really easy get. It's not much to bridge that gap. And I think that's, in Australia in particular, tradespeople make decent wages. That's basically our whole, it's tourism, it's minerals, and it's tradespeople and construction. So we are in that fortunate position where we do have some disposable income, and most people do try and navigate some type of investment. But what I think most people start to easy to understand, right, for most people, is equities, through a ETF, like an S&P 500 exposure to the market and real estate. So therefore, all of those investment vehicles are starting to really attract this monetary premium. And we've developed this massive property bubble now in Australia. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's multiples upon your wage, yearly wage, to get into the housing market. And I think people are starting to wake up. It's like, why are houses so expensive? It's because it's attracting a monetary premium, because our money's dirt. Our money doesn't work the way that we are used to, dealing with money throughout history. Like grandma told us, put it under your bed and come back for a rainy day. It doesn't work like that anymore. You can't do that. So that's where Bitcoin, it's easy. It's money. It's simple as money. Like under the hood, yes, it appears quite complicated, but fundamentally it's money. It serves as money. You put it away, you save in excess, you work hard, you spend less than you earn, you save the excess, and you come back for a rainy day and you look at what your purchasing power has been able to afford you over time.
Yeah, 100%. And just like the TLDR, like this is what Bitcoin does. It simplifies the need to save money so that you can focus on what's more important, like building stuff and, creating stuff and working on a trade. All right, before we pivot to what you're working on with Looking Glass, let's do what's the last point you want to talk about energy in particular, and then we'll work into the projects you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think no matter what you see the future energy grid looking like, whether that's a renewables mix, this path to net zero, whether you buy into that or you don't, ultimately that's where the way governments are going. But regardless of what that energy mix looks like, whether it's largely renewables or still rotating machines or nuclear, Bitcoin is the solution. It will help capitalize and monetize and improve the economics of any energy grid, no matter what that energy mix looks like. And it's the game changer. And I think most people, Bitcoiners, need to get vocal about that, because we need to be in the faces of these regulators, in the faces of these people who make these decisions, to say it is fiscally irresponsible to not have Bitcoin as part of that energy mix.
Amen.
Love it. Love it. Actually, there is one more energy question from the audience. So you can pass it, but Matthew J wants to know, Daz, what do you think of thorium energy?
Thorium? So, it's interesting. I don't spend a lot of time in the nuclear space, but that is a game changer in terms of breeder reactors and so forth. And I think nuclear is something that needs to be considered. In Australia, it's not even on the table for discussion. So I think one thing, not to get sort of too bogged down into the technical, but one thing you need for a nice stable energy grid is a rotating machine, because that's what keeps the heartbeat of a system. And the more renewables that come on, they're not rotating machines. They don't maintain a nice steady heartbeat. So I think nuclear makes a lot of sense in terms of the energy mix.
Love it. Love it. Okay. All right. Let's move on to Looking Glass. So here's your website, lookingglasseducation.com. I'll give you the floor. What are you working on? What's the point here? I think this is great right here, though. Jargon-free Bitcoin and finance education, like a perfect meme here. But take the floor, Daz. What is Looking Glass, and what is your goal with it?
Well, it was, largely to speak to my people, to tradespeople, to wage earners, to try and distill down some of these complex macroeconomic and financial topics into everyday sort of language that people can understand. So what we tried to do is the Bitcoin course is the main offering there. That's where we try and direct most people. It's a two-part course. First part is why Bitcoin. So, as an electrician, I spent over a year, 20 hours a week studying financial markets and investing before I invested a single dollar. And that's ultimately how I came to Bitcoin. But I was like, well, I realized that a lot of my friends and family won't do that. Don't have the time. They're too exhausted. Both mum and dad are in school. So how do we distill, in work all day, and the kids are in daycare, right? So they're too exhausted by the end of the night to go and read thousands of hours worth of books. So how do we distill that down into really simple to understand concept, into essentially what's a 4-hour course? And then part two was okay, well, if you're going to consider Bitcoin, we know it's volatile through the short term. What are some of the things that we can teach people around the concept around Bitcoin to understand just enough to ignore the FUD, ignore all the negative news press, look under the hood and go, look, TikTok next block, there's nothing wrong. I can, go away and be comfortable to ignore all of the noise that's surrounding the outside. So that's part two of the course is Bitcoin's history. Who's Satoshi Nakamoto is, why is centralization important, decentralization important? What is public-private key cryptography? What are nodes? What are miners? So just really trying to distill down how Bitcoin works, just so that you're comfortable in what you own.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And this just an extrapolation of the book B is for Bitcoin? Is that what I'm seeing here? Or is this B is for Bitcoin right here?
So B is for Bitcoin is essentially part 2 of that course. So the book's available on Amazon. It's via ebook or printed version. Not that one. Sorry, that's
different one.
Book. There's 2 books. B is for Bitcoin with the orange cover.
I'll find it.
Yeah. So it's basically part 2 of that course. So if you can afford the sats and support what we're doing in the education efforts, absolutely buy the book, buy a couple, hand them out to your friends and family. But if you can't afford the sats and you just want the knowledge, it's part 2 of the course and it's free. That's the book there. Yep.
Let's go. Okay. So what exactly? Is there some things that you can talk about? What are you getting when you get the book B for Bitcoin, or rather, you kind of went over what exactly is in the course? So just the TLDR again, what is in the course, and what will people learn specifically?
Okay, so the course is the 2 parts: the why of Bitcoin and the how of Bitcoin. B is for Bitcoin. The book is part 2 of that course. It's the how of Bitcoin. So how it works, what's under the hood, all of those things, like I mentioned, with private public key cryptography. Again, just trying to distill down, convey quite complex topics into just everyday language that people can understand and get a good grok of what this Bitcoin thing is and how it works.
Love it. Okay. And the last thing I do want to talk about, it's a little off topic, but not to really put your whole Bitcoin journey, on the spotlight right now. But before the show, we did talk about how good Bitcoin content has become and how much easier it is to become a Bitcoiner today. And that's just a testament to all the Bitcoin content out there. So I'd like for you to touch on that a little bit. And you are an educator, you're a content creator as well. So you know the whole journey from being orange pilled to starting to orange pill. So maybe let's just double down on that and then we'll wrap this one up for today.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my background too. So I'm a relatively new Bitcoiner, class of 2020, was studying it in 2019, but didn't buy my first sats till the market spew of 2020. So, but when I fell down really, really hard and really quite quickly. And I'm very grateful for even the content that was around in 2020, because it enabled me to fall down that rabbit hole really, really quickly and even pass through, of course, the shitcoin phase that most people go through, but was able to get through that relatively quickly and realize that Bitcoin is the only sort of place that I want to spend my time and energy in from that investment lens, even like looking around the landscape. When you know that the money is corrupt, when you know that the money is co-opted, when you know that the interest rates are manipulated, you realize that we're not operating in a free market, and Bitcoin is really the only signal to say this is still a free market, because it's outside of the control of any one central body.
100%.
So grateful for the plethora of information. It's just getting better. It's getting more succinct, and we're able to deliver that orange pill really, really easily and quickly now.
Love it, man. Totally agree. I say it all the time. Like, today, people don't have the excuse of going down the shitcoin rabbit hole unless they are very open with the fact that they just want to gamble at a shitcoin casino. If you ask yourself what Bitcoin really is, then you can get the message a lot quicker. And that's a testament to every one of you guys out there tweeting, all of us creating content, creating education courses. All this stuff definitely helps. And I just highly recommend everyone tries to do this, whether you just shill what, Daz is making or send them to Simply Bitcoin. The Bitcoin only content is super strong. And I don't think people have the excuse to go down the shitcoin rabbit hole anymore, unless they know that they're gambling out there. Okay. Daz, really appreciate this, but what's the final message you want to leave with the audience? It could be plug-in Looking Glass. It could be plug-in whatever you're working on, or just life lesson, or one last rant about Bitcoin, whatever you want to leave the audience with.
Self-custody. Got to get self-custody. Got to get that knowledge. And there's so many options. That's probably the other thing I'm really bullish about this cycle, is there's so many good options now to get you a hand and get you access. So at Looking Glass as well, we've got a service called Coddle. If you do need a hand to work out what your best self-custody option is, free consultation for anyone on this. If you want to sit down with Seb or myself or Dahlia or Jordan in our team, we can sit you down and work out your best custody solution. And we also partner with the Bitcoin Advisor, which is a collaborative custody offering and inheritance planning. And it's really quite a good wealth preservation tool, and something that everybody should consider, particularly if you've been stacking sats. You need to think about who you're leaving behind. If something does happen to you tomorrow, Does your loved one, does your executor of your will, do you have a will? You know, you need to be thinking about these things because, you know, if you're a Bitcoiner and you're here now, you will be a high net worth individual. It's only a matter of time. You know, whether it's this cycle or it's next cycle, the longer you're here, the more wealthy you'll become. And you need to start thinking about like a wealthy person.
Totally agree. Hold on. For the audio listeners out there, guys, go to lookingglasseducation.com if that interests you. And Daz, really appreciate it. I think that was a jam-packed rip right there. So absolutely incredible. We'll have to bring you on again once we get some more energy-related news coming up so that we can touch
Absolutely.
on that stuff. But I don't know, Nico, you want to jump in here, or where are you at right now? Are we wrapping this up?
Let's wrap it up. Daz, incredible drop in the hot fire. Let's get you back on the show. Opti and I are going to be on the road starting tomorrow. So we're going to be live streaming from Montreal, Canada tomorrow, Simply Bitcoin Live. I think I'm going to be holding it down solo with our guests. Maybe we'll get Sophie to do a guest appearance.
I'll see you Thursday.
But we'll be live streaming Thursday and Friday from Montreal, Canada, and then the Canadian Bitcoin Conference, which are going to be live streaming from the Simply Bitcoin show tomorrow. I mean, starting Friday and Saturday, which would be absolutely awesome. It's going to be an absolute party, guys. Very, very excited. We're going to be dropping some great content for you guys as well. So stay tuned. Love you all. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value.
One last thing, Nico.
Yeah,
sorry, not to cut you off. Daz, can you plug your Twitter for people to follow you? It's on the screen, but for the audio listeners.
Yeah, at DAZBEA. Thank you. And at Daz on Nostr.
Beautiful.
Let's
beautiful.
go.
All right, everybody. Love you all. See you guys on the other side. Peace out, everybody.
Cheers, boys.
This episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.